it's important that everybody has a copy of How to Be Single. Like, for real. Everybody needs this movie. Like, I think that most people listening have probably never seen it. And that's a shame.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talks about the movies that make us feel seen. And my co-host today could not be a longer time coming. Me and him had a debrief about this recently where he was like literally been a part of it since day zero when we were recording proof of concept episodes for Feeling Seen. And we have finally, more than just over 200 episodes in, on the occasion of the release of his first feature film, the director of such projects as The Quiet Room. You may have seen his segment in the horror anthology Deathcember, and you can now see his feature-length film debut on Tubi. It is called Hag. Writer-director Sam Wineman. What else do the people need to know about you before we get started?
Hey, friend.
Hey! Hey there! Oxterion gang.
I'm never more comfortable than I am in a chair next to you.
I'm so glad we get to do this in person. Obviously, a lot of these things happen virtually, but I didn't really even entertain the notion that we would do this remote.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, there was never... No, that wasn't in the cards. No, you and I were meant to be here. Okay, so yeah, you asked
because
anything
there's
else to know.
More. Yes, what else to know?
So I've made a bunch of shorts because there's Santaland and Thirsty, which... Weirdly, I'm actually talking to somebody right now about getting online. So they may be available to stream soon. Okay. That could be cool. Cool. Probably not Furbots, but...
Right. Yeah.
my Furby thriller.
God. So hopefully in some kind of retrospective sometime.
Someday. But I have Deathcember, which you did point out, because it's the time of year for that. Yeah. I'm actually going to go tonight to go see a screening of it.
Well, okay. And also in your history of like filmmaking and also a nonfiction like documentation, you made like a project for yourself called Date Trip. You have a great interest in aliens and extraterrestrials.
I do.
And cryptids. And you have done a lot of you're doing a lot of research and development work around kind of concepts related to that. We have that. We have horror. We are now arriving with Hag coming out. Tell us about Hag and why this is the script for you that jumped off that became the first feature.
Well, first off, I just came off of a docuseries that took several years to work on. And I love that you brought up Date Trip because that was technically my first docuseries. Right. Which, by the way, speaking of the alien connection, we camped out at Area 51 for a night there. Drove down the extraterrestrial highway.
Maybe there's a bonus content pod where we just talk about Sam's night outside of Area 51 because he very much researched the boundaries between what is public land and what is like privately owned, like federally owned land that you can't cross the border of.
Like basically, how close can you get without getting shot?
Real alien shit and real encounters with not happy government people.
Friends, wild ride.
Yeah.
But again, another time, although the connection between Date Trip and where we are now, I just will add because of today's movie choice. But Date Trip, I was going through a breakup and I was like, I'm going to go on dates to 10 cities in 10 days and just road trip and try and meet somebody in each city, like without anything or knowing anybody. Yeah. And we filmed it. And that was the very first project I ever directed. I had written a zombie musical at Berkeley, which was really fun to put on, and I loved it. I love the connection between music and film, and so that was very natural. But that was the first thing I ever really got into, and at that point, I was like, I need to make films. Right. Like that's when I started applying to film school, was Date Trip, and during releasing those episodes, and it's when I met producer Marissa. This is a family affair on this episode of Feeling Seen. It really is. I think I met her when I had released like episode 4 or 5. Wow. So yeah, it's that long ago, but we've had that much history.
Well, and the connection between music and film also is intrinsic to Hag as well.
It is. And so arriving at Hag, it feels like all of my interests in one, and it feels so special because coming off of the docuseries, which was about the history of queer horror, I got to write Hag, incorporating all of the research that I'd done, including had done before. Like I had taught a class on slasher films at Berkeley. I've had a rich back history of an interest in the subject and the genre. So writing an obsession thriller that really is a queer horror film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of got to tap into all of that, and with the music piece, like so for years, for friends who don't know.
Yeah, I guess in the what else do people need to know about me? Sam writes and sings his own music that he works on with the composer of the score for Hag.
Yeah, and he composed my music in December.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Andrew Scott Bell. And so for years, during AIDS Life Cycle, everybody had like really unique fundraisers, and I wanted to do something special. And because back in the MySpace days, I used to make music. Don't find it. That I started releasing holiday EPs because I think that like being queer at the holidays can be a precarious thing, especially when you're going home and some of us have conservative families. A lot of times up until recently, we couldn't even be in a Christmas movie, right? And so making queer original holiday songs was really important to me. It's something I've done like every year. So I just started releasing these little EPs for people who donated to AIDS Life Cycle, which, rest in peace, AIDS Life Cycle is no more. But, I actually am releasing 5 of the songs that I did for AIDS Life Cycle. They're going to drop the same day as Hag.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, and there's some of the promo out right now for Hag, which is at Baseline, about a man who, prior to the start of the movie, his name is Rowan, has experienced a tragic loss and is putting his life back together on his own outside of a partnership for the first time in years. And as he is sort of picking himself up off the ground, he encounters someone from his past who he used to know very well when he was very young. And then we enter some sort of single white female, as you said, obsession thriller territory. And he is an aspiring musician, this character, Rowan.
Yes.
And so is his workmate at his barista job. And that workmate is played by Adore Delano. One of the pieces of promo out for Hag is a song by you. It is a Sam Weideman original song being performed by Adore.
Yeah, it's a song called LA Close. And guys, what a dream. Just want to throw it out there, like seeing Adore Delano, one of my favorite musicians of all time, performing a song that I wrote. I cried on set. I mean, not for everybody to see, but like absolutely did.
Sure.
But it was, and seeing it every time I see it, it feels like magic. We use about a minute of it in the film. So, we cut an entire basically music video version of LA Close and release that on Adore's Instagram so people can watch the song in full. And if they like the song, that's actually going to be in the EP that drops on Spotify. So LA Close, but my version.
Well, okay. So as when we were talking about like what character to do, very different from when we were, as I said, recording proof of concept for this show, literally years ago at this point, we've arrived at a different character choice. And you're like, I don't know, should I do something like on theme, like obsession thrillery to like tie it to Hag? And I was like, well, or should I do this other movie? And I was like, well, what is Hag, if not its own consideration? What is Rowan doing in Hag, if not trying to figure out how to be single?
But whatever you do not hook up in this copy room. 1, it's just like so cliche. And 2, there's a security camera.
Oh, I'm not really hooking up with anybody right now because recently I actually...
yeah, I know what you're thinking. They do record the footage.
As we get into talking about the outstanding all-timer romantic comedy, How to Be Single, tell the people how this movie operates in your life.
All right, so I watch How to Be Single every year for something I call Singleversary, which is commemorating one more year from like a horrendous breakup that, when I celebrated being me.
Yeah.
And Singleversary started before I met before I watched How to Be Single, but How to Be Single had a special place because I actually my very last date within that relationship was with a guy to see How to Be Single, and then we broke up the next day. So, and then I went back and saw it in theaters like 4 times. And so obviously that had to become like my movie night that I do every year. And everybody comes over to the apartment, we watch it, we bring our own like cartons of ice cream, everybody's wearing comfy clothes or whatever makes you feel like you. And it's about embracing yourself and friendship and owning who you are outside of your romantic attachments. And that's so important in my life because that really is, finding who I am and incorporating that into my art. It was the impetus of me going down this path. Yeah. And it continues to be the thing that informs everything that I do. And when it comes to How to Be Single, it is my comfort watch. Like if I'm on an airplane, I'm going to find How to Be Single. Yeah. If I'm at a Walgreens, I'm going to find the dollar version and buy 10 copies.
That has happened. The copy of How to Be Single that I own is because you bought more than like a dozen copies.
I think
of
about
it.
15.
Yeah, and like gave it away at like movie night Christmas.
Because it's important. It's important that everybody has a copy of How to Be Single. Like, for real. Everybody needs this movie. Like, I think that most people listening have probably never seen it. And that's a shame.
What is How to Be Single about?
So How to Be Single is about, we follow a character named Alice who breaks up with her college boyfriend intentionally, like, to find herself.
I say I'm gonna do things all the time and I never ever do them. Like, I'm gonna learn to cook or take a self-defense class, or I'm gonna hike the Grand Canyon and I never ever do it.
That's not my fault. You said the boots made your feet hurt.
Look, if we really want this to work long term, I need to know who I am alone, and I don't want to spend my life wondering what if.
This is stupid. The minute you walk out of here, you're gonna realize how much shit I do for you and how great I am and how much you need me, and you're gonna start stalking me. And that's sad.
By the way, did I say played by Dakota Johnson?
Played by Dakota Johnson,
who
crucially.
is so fun and funny and should be
God.
doing more comedy.
If any of you bitches have ever come after me on Twitter for hailing the dynamic and deep nature of Dakota Johnson as a performer, you need to watch How to Be Single, because you need to remember that this woman's roots are in comedy and she's hilarious.
I know for a fact, when people tell me that they don't think Dakota Johnson's a good actress, I know for a fact they haven't seen How to Be Single.
Absolutely not.
For a fact, like, you're telling on yourself.
Yep.
She's so good in this. So she's going through her breakup. She meets Rebel Wilson at this law firm. They both are like not interning at, but like entry level job.
Yeah, it's like they have legal assistant jobs that you don't need a law degree to have. They're not like paralegals, but they're assistants at a law firm.
And we follow Alice kind of on this journey to, like, we meet her sister who wants a baby, but she doesn't want a relationship. We meet a number of characters, like people that she kind of dates in order to really kind of get back out there and get over her ex. But the transition in this film is going from like learning that being single isn't just about filling the time between you and the next man, but actually owning who you are, following your dream, like finding out what your dreams are, listening to them and following them, while also embracing the relationships in your life, the friendships as not filler, not recovery from, you know, a relationship, but being the main course. Your friendships are the things that fuel your life.
Which is also the underpinnings of the song LA Close, which comes out in Hag. Like, and I bring that up not just for like circular plug-in, but the nature of the premise of this question of what is a character that's made you feel seen, and how we describe it to people when we're pitching the show to them or a publicist is, yeah, we're gonna, like, we get a character that has made this person feel represented on screen. And that, I know that kind of sounds like busy work for you as a publicist or an extra thing for someone to do on a press junket. They have to think of this thing instead of just like showing up and doing a plug and play press appearance. But the point is, we talk about that character so we can talk about the project that you're putting out now, so that we can connect the dots between the things we watch and then the things we go on to make, and that cyclical relationship, that unending cyclical relationship between the art that we take in and the art that we go on to create for ourselves.
Well, it's so perfect because the character that I wrote, Rowan, as much as I'd love to be like, Rowan's me, Rowan's not me. I mean, there is every piece of anything anybody writes is an extension of them. But Rowan is a character who, much like Alice, needs to learn self-reliance, but instead continues to have people in his life who kind of step in and solve the problems. And I think that happens with Dakota Johnson's character because she's, at least at first, she really is a passenger.
Yeah.
And it's the journey of watching her go from passenger to driver. And I feel the same thing about Rowan.
Oh my God, you're gonna have a baby.
I know! You're gonna have a baby!
I'm so happy for you. You'll always be my baby first. But you do need to grow up. And you do need to move out by this Friday.
What?
The co-op board found out you were here. Is this a bad idea? Would you tell me?
No, you're gonna be the best mom in the world. Wait, what? Just go back. What was that thing that you just said about the co-op board?
You need to be out by Friday.
Rowan meets his estranged middle school girlfriend, who, by the way, what a nightmare there. If you want to talk about horror, like, I hope I never run into my middle school girlfriend. I'm just kidding. I didn't have a middle school girlfriend. Oh my God, I wish.
No, I'm a real gold star gay over here.
It was actually, wait, no, I'm lying. I did have a middle school girl. Allison Kemple, if you're out there. Hello.
You're like, Allison, if you're out there, you're not Mag. I swear to God,
you're not Mag.
You're not Mag.
You were actually very sweet. Played the flute. Nice girl. Anyways, we all have these pieces of our past, but why I bring that up is because it's like, who I was then is not who I am now.
Yeah.
I had no idea who I was then, which means the person that, say I were to run into her at a coffee shop, the person that she remembers is not the person I am. And when you're around people who knew you then, like for a lot of queer people who knew us before we formed who we are, and really put that publicly facing in some cases, then we're held to a standard of a person we've never been or that we don't want to be.
Yeah.
And I think especially connecting that to the holidays, like that happens when you go home for the holidays. It's like everybody grew up with Sam Wineman, this one part of me, but I'm so much more, I'm a completely different human.
Yeah.
And so in Hag, what we see is a woman from Rowan's past who is really dead set on both who she thinks he was, right? And the love that was fostered for that person, and also what she imagines a relationship with a gay guy should be.
Right, yeah. Well, that's actually the notion of being, like, you know, the sort of meta question of like being perceived and being known. I do want to ask about that aspect of like you said, the person who I may have been over here is not reflective of the person I may have been today. And even the person who I may present as publicly may not be the person that I am. Like, I think of you as a very consistent person. Like, you are who you are in every avenue. But working at being somebody who works in a public figure facing kind of job, like if filmmaking is hitting for someone correct, then like people do know who you are because they know your work, because you want them to watch your work.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear from you about like that, you know, from the date trip moment of being like, I've got to pursue this. Like, I'm going to make this a job, to this moment of first feature coming out and like the perception contrast to reality story of you along the way. I wanted to hear about where you're at with that dichotomy, or perhaps the complement or contrast between those two aspects as like your first feature comes out in the world. When you have like a body of work that's supposed to be public and people watch you grow along the way and watch you change as a filmmaker. Like, you're not the person you were when you made The Quiet Room, even if you stay proud of the Quiet Room.
Wow, that is such a good question, Jordan.
Well, thank you.
This is why I think you do the best Q&As in all of LA.
Well, thank you.
If anybody ever has a chance to see a Jordan Q&A, I mean, I
will co-sign that.
I
take it very seriously as a job.
It makes me not want to stay for other Q&As.
I don't either.
Anyway, that's true. We've left. But, you know, when thinking about Date Trip, for example, like that was right away me going, hey, here's like the roughest thing I'm going through, and I'm going to put it on the internet to people who don't know me. And, you know, going through a breakup and finding who you are, that's like that. It's that truth that speaks to, I think, okay, so this goes back to, I dropped out of high school, right? Ultimately, I got my GED, went to community college, transferred to Berkeley. I'm very grateful for the educational career that I had that followed. But there was a time when I was, you know, getting sober. I was 17 and had dropped out. And I just like found a community college that had a creative nonfiction class. And when I was learning about how to write, and they said that you always want to find the things, like it's a balancing act between showing who you are and what you're holding back, but that ultimately that it's the pieces that make you the most vulnerable that are the pieces that people are going to connect with. Sure. And I think that translates to fiction as well. And I've always held that as a part of the things that I do. I do think there's a learning curve, like moving to LA and being public facing. Like when I did my MySpace stuff, for example, like my gimmick, like I had a black bar over my eyes, right? Like it's like I never showed all of me, right? Because the songs showed all of me. And so I think that the learning curve was steep when I moved to LA. It was like I was involved with everything, and I knew to promote myself. Like a lot of young filmmakers will acknowledge, like, you are the product. Yeah. You know, as much as your movie is, like, I am so grateful that The Quiet Room resonated with so many people, and it got me, you know, it gave me a platform right away where I got to connect with people. But also, that's a lot of connecting. And it's like, and you're right, like who I am here is pretty much who I am not here. Yeah. I am
1,000%.
Like all the time, because that's just who I am.
And that's a really vulnerable default to have.
Yeah. And so when I had experiences outside of my control, I really withdrew for a bit, where I was like, maybe I don't need everybody to see all of me all the time. Right. You know, and like learning when and how to protect that, and also when to just put it in my art instead. I
was going to say, how does that affect the input factor of the writing then?
To be real, like I think it's only helped me in that I get to channel it into storytelling. You know, I still do obviously enjoy doing things like this. Like I like connecting with you. I like talking about things that I love. But I make sure that the balance is that's not my job. My job isn't being public facing. My job is making art.
Yeah.
And as long as my art looks like me, then I'm happy. Like, and I mean my truest expression of myself. If that makes sense.
No, for sure. And I think there's with How to Be Single, with Hag, I think there is this element too that I think connects to the filmmaking experience, to the LA experience. Let's say the LA experience. You can be a filmmaker in Georgia, in rural Georgia. You can be a filmmaker in Arkansas, like filmmakers we have talked to on this show. And it's not necessarily the same experience of arriving and finding a community in Los Angeles where there is a kind of discernment that can be required.
Girl.
And in Hag and in How to Be Single, we're watching, obviously one is a thriller, one is a comedy. And for the most part, the people around Alice, around Dakota Johnson, like they do have her best interest. Everybody kind of has each other's best interest at heart in this movie. But it is still a matter of like finding the pathway that serves you best, and not in that narcissistic, like self-care, let them mentality, but in the aspect of like the people that you can serve the best as well by being yourself and having that like reciprocal enrichment in your life. I wanted to hear about like those reflections of a movie you go on to make, a movie that you watch that means so much to you, and your own process of that kind of curation of the very LA specific social geography that exists for somebody in the filmmaking industry.
I love that connection to How to Be Single, because I will say all of what we learn in How to Be Single is to basically to win, right? If you're going to win the situation, it has to do with authenticity.
Yeah, the Alison Brie character, the Anders Holm character, they're very oriented toward winning and gaming the system of being a person in their 20s to like win it for themselves.
Look, I spent half of last year creating an algorithm that trolls dating apps for the best candidates and downloads them into an Excel spreadsheet, so I know what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's not weird at all.
And basically in How to Be Single, the people who are trying to game the system, or the people who are, who are focused on the end result more than the experience, those people are not rewarded with good relationships.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a similarity with the experiences I've had in LA. I mean, I write, Hag, as well as like the EP that's dropping, like they're all about Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Like in a very real way, because the experiences I've had here are different. I moved around growing up. I lived in a different city every year.
Yeah, you were an all around the country.
So it's like coming here and now being here almost 10 years. I feel like I do have a unique perspective, and it was and it's interesting because something that happens here that I haven't experienced elsewhere as a filmmaker in other places is that, your friends are also or can also be your competitors.
Sure, yeah.
Now, I just assumed this is like, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed me. I was just like, hey, we're all friends. We're all trying to help each other. Every win is a win for all of us.
For all of us.
And that may be naive. I still truly believe that that is the truth.
Completely. I agree as well. Despite so much of what exhibits itself to the contrary, I still believe in my core in that.
But what I had to learn, and you talked about discernment, it's that is not the truth for everybody. Or, people who are gaming the system.
Yeah.
There are a lot of shortcuts that can be made if you are willing to compromise who you are or what you believe or the path that you see as being the right path to get there. But for, a lack of... I know this sounds cheesy, but like I feel like as long as I'm guided by doing the right thing, I'll always end up where I need to be.
Right.
And that's what has gotten me here to Hag. And, the irony being, it may not have been the path that I expected, but it is completely my film.
Right.
Like, Hag is written and directed by me with, like, no real notes from Tubi. Like,
and music by you.
Yeah, it is such a me creation. I didn't have to make any sacrifices. I didn't have to change any characters from queer to straight.
Yeah.
Like, all of that. But what's in the film Hag, what Rowan is dealing with is he has his frenemy, Opal, who he works with, who is also competition, but she's also his like chosen family in LA. And that makes things complicated because she's also a musician. And I think that it's a reflection on some of the experiences I've had for sure.
Well, okay. You touched on something there, like it didn't have to change the characters from being queer. I was watching the, as of recording, episode 6 of the HBO show I Love LA has aired, which I have come to really enjoy.
I love that show.
And in episode 6, the influencer character played by Odessa Azion, is these people are just like ambiently queer. And she's doing a Ritz commercial. Tallulah's doing a Ritz commercial, and her best friend / manager is Rachel Sennett. And Rachel brings up that Tallulah's calling her girlfriend on the phone, and the rep from Ritz is like, "Oh, is she a lesbian?" And Rachel's like, she's dated guys, she dates girls. She's like, "Well, has she like come out?" And Rachel Sennett goes, "I mean, you don't really come out anymore." And the rep is like, "We love that. No, Ritz loves that. But we love a lesbian. We're so behind her." And I'm watching this, feeling this discomfort by this character played by Rachel Sennett, who has created the show, who is a producer and writer on the show, that is also produced by Emma Barry, who is like a millennial, like young millennial contemporary to Rachel Sennett, like a little bit older. She's worked in Hollywood for a while, but like I recognized that name when I saw her in the credits. So I'm watching these millennial, but largely Gen Z exhibition of a queer character influencer operating in this space in a capitalistic enterprise. And so what happens is Tallulah ends up painted on the side of a building in East Los Angeles, around like Silver Lake, hip Los Feliz area. And it's her eating a Ritz on a rainbow painted background. And at the top of this thing, it says, "Ritz supports LGBTQ stories." And it is like spread queer love. Like it could not be more Bank of America rainbow ATM at a pride parade. And all Tallulah and her peers, her friend group, they think it is so fucking embarrassing. And it is not because anybody's closeted. It is because the aspect of like their queer identity being sanctioned by this corporation and waved around like that and being so flag planted is so fucking cringe. Because they're just like, for them, I guess, they're just like post coming out culture. And for someone who has worked in the service of queer story and like activistically minded around the telling of queer stories and the green lighting of queer stories and the chronicling of queer stories in documentary setting. And this is a topic of conversation we've revisited so much in our Audsterion conversations of like the generational difference between queer presentation in media. I must hear your thoughts on de rigueur Gen Z actor creators sanctioned by HBO getting their big break on and having an episode dedicated comically to how embarrassing it is to be gay on a billboard, because you're like, oh God, like you can feel like the ugh mom radiating off of all of them. In this case, me being mom.
I love that you brought this up because it gave me a lot of feelings. In 2017, when I was about to graduate Chapman University with The Quiet Room, right? Because like something that I often don't say but is very true is The Quiet Room was actually my thesis film. Mm-hmm. But the trick to getting people to work in your thesis film and to getting your thesis film out there is to never, ever, under any circumstances, call it a thesis film.
Right.
That is just your short film.
Got it.
Oh, but in 2017, I had a professor who I very much admired, who sat me down and said, you know, Sam, at some point, you're going to have to decide, are you going to direct movies with queer characters or are you going to direct movies for everybody? Because otherwise, you may have you could have a really great career as John Waters, but you'll never be more than that. And there's a couple of I admire this person.
I can have an exhibition dedicated to me at the Academy Museum.
I mean,
okay,
truly. And the number of times, by the way, I was compared to John Waters at showings and things like Furbots for sure.
Right.
I had a professor who was like, "Is this just fodder for laughter?" And that was in front of my whole class. You know, it's like there's something about queer art, I think, that maybe wasn't entirely understood in the way that it is accepted now. And maybe people aren't understanding it, but they're going to put us on the billboard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyways, that was an interesting moment for me because I knew right away what the answer was, which is I'm never going to be telling straight stories.
Yeah.
That's not, I'm always going to be telling queer stories because I'm queer.
Yeah, yeah.
And and I didn't grow up with queer stories.
No.
So, and also I can't even get into John Waters, whom I love and is absolutely an inspiration for me. But that I don't think it's true. I don't think that same professor would say the same thing today.
I don't think
it's only been 8 years.
They would risk jeopardizing their credibility among their entire student body.
Because now it's very clear that you can have that career path, but it wasn't always that way. So I mean, that was 2017. In 2019, I was offered a movie. No, maybe it was the end of 2018. But I was offered a movie for a script that I really liked, and I was allowed to do a rewrite on. And the only condition was I couldn't change the main character to to queer. I had to change any of the number of, I could choose anybody else but her.
Interesting.
And I love that script. It'll always be the one that got away. But I turned it down because that was the climate then. Now, I'm not saying it's hugely different now. I still hear feedback that's similar behind the scenes.
For sure.
Right? Like, that's the thing. It's like getting a Ritz cracker billboard is different than, getting a movie at Paramount.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know that we're not entirely there yet, but I will say the movie that I direct, like Hag, would I believe with my whole heart would not have been greenlit in a like this movie was greenlit in a one-line pitch.
Yeah.
That would not have happened in 2017 or 2019. Agreed. Things have changed. And so weirdly, the thing that I felt when I was watching that scene was like, it's here. Like the thing that you've been fighting for so long is actually arrives, do you even notice?
Right. Right.
It's like we're in this era where we've come so far now that actually that can be embarrassing. But in those early years, it had to be like, I had to brand myself like, I am a queer filmmaker. I make queer horror. Like, this is my brand. The time for queer horror is now.
Yeah.
All of those things are true, but they had to be the thing because otherwise somebody would strip it away from me.
Yeah.
But now, just existing and making art and having queer characters is just a part of the fabric of the thing that we do.
It's time for a break, but Sam and I will be right back. And then I will have one quick thing before I go at the end about the Amanda Seyfried double you can watch in theaters this December. It's must-see cinema experiences for both of these titles, so stick around and I will talk about the house-made testament of Ann Lee extravaganza at the end.
Greetings, I am John Hodgman, co-host and co-creator of the Judge John Hodgman podcast, along with Jesse Thorne here on the Maximum Fun Network. And I am here with Max Fun Member of the Month, Keith, who's been a Maximum Fun member since when, Keith?
Oh, at least 3 or 4 years now. I don't recall exactly when I fell prey to the pledge drive, but it got a hold of me and I've yet to relent.
Oh, and we shall not ever let go. Now, you join us telephonically from a different country from ours, which is which?
I moved to Vera, Portugal back in August of this year.
I hear evening birds chirping behind you. And what are the names of those birds?
We do have quite a few spoonbills and quite a few flamingos as well.
So what would you say to the birds around you and the people listening who are considering supporting the show?
It's just nice to have a little bit of investment in the things that I love. Knowing that I'm making sure that those podcasts are still being created makes me feel good.
We're so pleased to have you be our Maximum Fun Member of the Month. Thank you very much, Keith, in Portugal. This month's Maximum Fun Member of the Month.
Obrigado.
Become a Max Fun member now at MaximumFun.org/join.
I'm Emily Fleming.
I'm Jordan Morris.
And I'm Matt Lieb.
We are real comedy writers.
Real friends.
And real cheapskates.
On every episode of our podcast, Free with Ads, we ask, why pay for expensive streaming services when you can get free movies from apps with weird names?
Each week, we review the freest movies the internet has to offer. Classics like Pride and Prejudice.
Cult classics like Point Break.
And holy what did I just watch? Classics like Teen Witch.
Tune in every week as we take a deep dive into the internet's bargain bin.
Every Tuesday on MaximumFun.org or your favorite pod place.
I'm curious to know what the experience of being so conditioned to fight for a thing when then obviously there's still a fight involved around it, but less so. Like, what does that evolution of the tension around being a queer artist mean for how you pour into your queer art?
You know what's wild? The only thing I had to fight making Hag, the only thing I had to fight was just on-set stuff.
Right,
the typical things every director fights for.
Totally.
And I think that not having to fight for who I am actually freed me up to just make art.
Look at
How
that.
great is that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
At that.
And I don't even think, truly, it wasn't until I was done the experience that I was like, Meth, that I was like, oh, yeah, that was zero speed bumps there.
Yeah.
And that was unusual, but I wasn't so in it that I was like used to it or came in like ready to form a fight. I think I always just took the same, I always took it with a grain of salt, like kind of humor, I guess.
Yeah.
Because, well, I'll tell you guys something. Okay, we talk about this. But I think there's nothing more that a straight man wants than to be bullied.
My God.
And
the amount of success I've seen you have with this.
I can't. When you
just
have,
putting them in their place.
When you have some, straight white producer who thinks he knows everything, and you tell him he doesn't, well, you're going to get another meeting. As we
discussed, like a recent, like there's the Tilly Norwood thing, but another like floating around the internet AI generated hot girl. Like the entire like minute and a half video that she exists in is her flirtatiously trashing the guy who created her. Like being asked, what do you think of the guy who made you? And she's like, I'm not that big a fan. He's like a pretty shitty director. A guy made a hot girl to say shitty things about him, and he exists as a completely private citizen, and then he puts a hot girl AI person on the internet, and it's like, I want the thing people know about me is that this hot girl, my fantasy is that she talks down to me.
I got to tell you, my boyfriend's bisexual. You know him.
Yes.
I showed him that video after you sent it to me, and I was like, hey, babe, they made an AI of your type. Yeah, and it's true. But I just think that like there is an element of that that's like I was prepared for that, and it never came for me. It was never on the. I don't think I ever came at it from a really defensive place. I always came at it from a place where it was like the facts are just the facts.
Yeah.
And I think that can come across as like abrasive to some people. But if you take it with like coming from a place of compassion, usually people can hear you.
Yeah.
That's been my experience. Yeah. And so I think it would be one thing if I approached the topic with hostility. But I was never a person who was like, it's not my job to educate them. Because I think that while it may not be my job, I'd love the opportunity.
Yeah.
Man, if somebody wants to learn, what if I taught them?
Yeah.
How to treat me. How cool would that be?
Yeah.
I mean, like, so it's like, yes, that gets exhausting. I don't want to carry that burden all the time. And I don't have to do it every day. Mm-hmm. But I do think that in this industry, especially just showing people what that can look like can go a really long way. Given
the length of relationship that you've had with How to Be Single and the way that it entered your life with this sort of like wave crashing down. And then now is it being a completely like a ritualized part of like your like annual experience of this movie night that you've had going on for decades. What still surprises you about when you watch How to Be Single when it is something that is so programmed into your movie watching and movie experiencing life?
Two things come to mind. The first is that the sense of elation I feel every time Alice has her montage set to Mine by Phoebe Ryan. I could stand up on the couch, and I probably do most of the time, because it just feels like, she had talked herself out of, at some point in the movie, she talks herself out of very casually hiking the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
She's like, I've always wanted to hike the Grand Canyon, but I just never, I'm always afraid to do the things I really want to do.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to see this. I don't know why I always talk myself out of doing the things I really want to do.
Well, like what?
There's this thing that people do on New Year's where they hike the Grand Canyon in the dark so that they can watch the new year come in with the dawn.
That sounds amazing.
I know.
I'm just not a hiker. I don't like that stuff that's on the ground that like gets on you.
The dirt?
Yes.
And somebody told me a long time ago that we always end up doing the thing that we want to do second most, because the thing that we want to do most is the thing that scares us the most.
That's a very good point.
And I will tell you, that was very true for me for a long time.
Huh.
And I think that, like, for example, I love music. I was always afraid to put myself out there in a really vulnerable way.
Right.
So, just putting things out there to put them out there, that's part of it for me. Being a filmmaker and being like, you know what? I'm not here just to write. Like, I went to school to write. And then it's like, no, I want to direct.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to do the scariest possible thing. But her journey to that and training for the Grand Canyon, all alone, at her most alone moment in the movie where she's just reading the bell jar in a window in New York. You know what I mean? Like, when she like puts on that coat that looks very Madame Web, by the way, those sunglasses, walks across the street like a bad bitch. I can't help but scream.
Beautifully lit street.
Yes. And every time it hits me in a way that feels so visceral. And so I think it surprises me that it still hits me that hard. But I identify so hard with that. But I will say the thing that surprised me on this most recent watch, A lot of times the opening monologue sounds like a closing monologue to me. And in some ways, I think it's actually more powerful than the closing monologue. And so sometimes I think I just tune it out because it's just, okay, she's just narrating while we're meeting the characters.
Yeah.
But she says something. She says, why do we always tell our stories through our relationships?
We're living longer, marrying later, and refusing to leave the party before we're really, really done. So why do we always tell our stories through relationships?
Where's home?
Oh, I'm not going home. No way.
That's a challenge, I think, as a writer and as a storyteller. It's like, how am I telling the story? Like, Rowan's story is not told through his romantic relationship.
Right.
Now, does he meet a guy named Brady who's super cute?
Yeah. An excellent himbo.
And does Brady survive every script I made or even the movie? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's that inconsequential to me. Not that the character's inconsequential, but the movie itself is not about that relationship. The movie is about Rowan and his connection to self and his journey and his journey to really following his dreams. And I relate to that. And I want to tell that kind of story. And so I think a challenge to filmmakers and storytellers is, how do you tell a story without centralizing the romantic relationship, even in horror?
Filmmaking, to stick with it, it's a thing you have to do. Like, it's not just like, this seems casually fun, unless you're super rich, which plenty of people do. There are so many people who show up in Hollywood and just have enough money to like it out. But when you're just a normal person of normal means, it is because you are the thing that, like, you have to commit to it. And I wanted to know, how do you find filmmaking serves you in, like, personality, this endeavor as job, fulfill for you? And also, what has been fortified in your continued commitment to it when it's like, this is the ways it will test me and break me, and yet I will persist? Like, why? What does it do for you to give the why?
First of all, shout out to the rich people who make content with no challenge.
Yeah.
I love that content. I'm going to say it right here. I want to invite me to your movie premiere.
Yeah.
I love nothing more than to watch a movie and be like, that a rich person made this.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's like, it's a lot of fluff. Sometimes it's just like, wow, who bought them that camera? That's wild. And I don't mean this to make fun of anybody. Listen, we all need to tell our stories. We need to get it out there. But like, I can enjoy, I've been told that I'm always looking for the thing I like in everything, and I think that's a great quality.
Yeah, I know that I got looked down upon in a previous journalism job because, like, I was viewed as easy to please when I was just eager to enjoy.
Hey, guess what? I love movies.
I love movies.
And
I want to
can't
like
believe
everything I see.
How many people in this industry that I work with that seem to hate movies?
It seems to be a chronic condition.
Understand what they're doing, because it's like, it takes to be a filmmaker. It is so often a 24-hour day job, and I mean, like, literally sometimes it is, and you have to love it, or I don't understand why you're doing it. And actually, this goes to the answer to your question, which is, I could do a number of things that are creative, and I think I'd be happy.
And
right?
you've told me many times, listen,
I make a great barista. I do, guys. I'm a great barista. And that's the thing. So I always say that because it's like, listen, if I strike out, I strike out, but I got to try, and it's come to a point where when it comes to my art, there are so many ways that I express myself. I mean, I make my Christmas ornaments every year. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can find creative expression in almost everything that I do. So why filmmaking? And that's actually really hit me, especially after some of the challenges that I faced here, because it's like, there was a moment when I think a lot of people who are drawn to Hollywood are drawn to a spotlight, at least some sense of a spotlight.
Yeah, at least some people, at least to a degree.
And listen, would I have made Date Trip if I wasn't at least somewhat drawn to a spotlight? I mean, I love bearing my truth, and I think that's a big part of it. But there's another part of me that was like, yeah, sure, let's put it out there.
Totally, yeah.
Like, there's a performance element, I guess, of that as well. But what I found is, it turns out I'm somebody who isn't as in love with the spotlight as I thought I might be.
Interesting.
And so how do I navigate a career without fully rejecting that component of it just because it's not something that serves me or that I'm interested in? And that's been where I'm at now, which is like, I'm what drives me to do this job is not that piece. But I kind of think that can be a superpower, right? Like Karen Kusama, she's not on socials.
No, she's not.
Like,
and her husband just on social media talking about the Dodgers. So
there are, in some ways, it's really, it's been a learning experience. Like I'll be real. Like there was a moment where I was like, can I even be in this city?
Yeah.
Like, do I have to give up my career as a filmmaker because this piece is so volatile?
Yeah.
And I guess we're still finding that out together, right? But I definitely stayed because I think change doesn't happen unless you make it happen. And I think that a lot of people come to LA and have bad experiences and they leave. And those things don't change.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be that person. If bad things happen, then I'm going to stay and fight. And so I think maybe, going back to a question you asked before, the fight now is less about fighting for queer representation, although it's definitely mandatory.
Yeah, it never ends. Never ends.
And it's more about fighting for a safe place to live and work. And fighting for better systems in place to protect people on and off set. And to fight for one another, to have the kinds of experiences that, as naive as it may sound, that we're all deserving of.
Yeah. And
that we know in our hearts going into this that are the experiences that should be the experiences we're having, no matter how many cautionary tales we're told. So, I so much of my focus has shifted, and I do think it's for the better, but it's a different kind of challenge than navigating the other one.
Well, okay. So then my final question would be, what have stories done for you that you hope your stories do for the people who find yours?
I love this question.
Okay, good.
I think as a queer person, I found my way into horror movies because it's like so outsider focused. We have final girls who are underestimated, but then they actually use all of the lessons from surviving what they have up until that point to actually defeat the killer. Horror for me is about coming up against the impossible, facing that, looking it in the eye, and doing it anyways. There's no chance that you're going to make it out, but you do it anyways. And sometimes they do, and I think that having that kind of representation, even when I wasn't out, or even when I didn't know that I was necessarily know the fullness of my queerness or who I was, I still identified with those characters. But man, if I had queer characters in horror, I don't know. I wonder how much faster I would have gotten here.
Right.
And that's in horror. That's in literature, like characters who aren't tragic and have to die because they love people. The characters that don't have to be punished for who they are or too beautiful for this world, but we still, hold them on a pedestal or award them at award shows because they are great performances worthy of that. But we are so much more than that.
Yeah.
I want to make the movies that I didn't grow up with.
Yeah.
I want to make the movies that I want to see. And, I thought about that with Hag, and something about it being on Tubi that makes it so appealing to me is that, some 12-year-old kid in Pennsylvania where, I grew up who is just discovering who he is.
Yeah.
Is going to be able to sneak that late at night because, we all did. Yeah. Was I too young to watch Scream? Absolutely. Was I watching Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 8? Shouldn't have been. Yeah. But, some kid is going to sneak that because it's so accessible and anybody can watch it. And they're going to see what they could be. They're going to see a friend group that loves each other. They're going to see healthy examples of relationships, and they're going to see some pretty crazy shit. Yeah.
Yeah, rest assured the deaths in this movie are fantastic.
Look, it's sinister. But, the between the lines part is there's authenticity to who these people are. And it's the kind of thing that I wish that I had, and I'm so grateful that I get to make.
I think that's where we wrap it up at. And I just am so glad that, again, a little more than 200 episodes in, we are finally able to have this conversation specifically as your first feature comes out. So thank you for coming on the show today to talk about it, Sam.
There's nowhere I'd rather be, friend.
Thank you again so much to Sam Wineman. A forever time coming. I am so thrilled to finally have this recording done and this episode out in the world. Sam, in addition to being a great filmmaker and my good friend, is also my co-host on the Aughts Tyrion podcast. And Hag, as we mentioned, is on Tubi. It is a Tubi original. That means you can stream it right now for free. You don't need an account. It's just 3 letters. Just go to Tubi.com and search Hag. That's it. You'll find it. Now watch it. The beauty of Tubi. There we go. And now that one quick thing before I go, it's like a double quick thing combined into one, because perhaps this week, if not this week, in the next 2 weeks, you can treat yourself in theaters to an unbelievable exhibition of performance by Amanda Seyfried by seeing 2 movies on the big screen. You can see the rip-roaring Paul Feig Sisters in Chaos, like airport pulp extravaganza that is The Housemaid, starring Amanda and Sydney Sweeney, that the trailer doesn't begin to give you the half of the madness that unfolds in this movie. And Sydney Sweeney is perfectly cast in this. I would happily double up this movie with her excellent, also kind of exploitation cinema piece, The Voyeurs, which is available on Amazon Prime. But the Seyfried of it all for The Housemaid. This is a woman who is contending for Oscar conversation for The Testament of Anne Lee. But before she gives you that, she is going to say to you, come with me on the most, like, arch, broad, almost hagsploitation performance that also only I, Amanda, with my big anime eyes, could deliver with the nuance necessary to add the agony of a woman's depth, the depth of a woman's agony, that is, in a picture such as The Housemaid. If you're going to trust any man to direct 2 women together in a movie about ladies going crazy, it's Paul Feig. You are in his capable hands. This is the man who brought you the best performance of Blake Lively's career in A Simple Favor, and this is the best thing he has done since A Simple Favor. I want him to make movies like this forever that are bringing us back to the bunny boilers of the 1990s. A little sexy, a little sleaze, a lot of twisting and turning around, and you know what? Before you put your head screwed back right on your shoulders, you are going to walk into that cinema again, I tell you, and you are going to see the testament of Anne Lee, in which Amanda Seyfried plays the title character, who is, as I learned because of this movie, the sort of founding prophet of the Shaker movement, which was like the Quakers but extra around Civil War era United States. Planted her congregation in the American Northeast after coming over from Britain, fleeing a religiously oppressive regime. And this movie is from director Mona Fastfold. It is a musical, it is a historical drama, it is a biopic, and it has a rhythm and a vision unlike really anything else that you will have seen this year. It is an excellent movie. This is prestige. This is prestige picture stuff right here. And Amanda going and giving you the bookends of what a woman can do on screen if she is given the room to absolutely run with her arms out and spinning around through a meadow. This is Amanda Seyfried is cinema in December of 2025. So close out the year with her, close out the year seeing 2 excellent movies, and close it out seeing them in theaters. As we know, if you've been reading any entertainment news lately, the theaters need us now more than ever. And that is my one quick thing, and that is our show. You can keep up with us wherever you get your podcasts. We would really love it if you could tell a friend about Feeling Seen. Maybe share a link to this episode or another one you love with someone you think would dig it. We want more people to know about the good work we are doing over here. It's the best podcast that not, 2 million people are already listening to. So follow us wherever you're listening to get every new episode in your feed as it drops. And you can also follow us on social media like Instagram. To find out more, you can search Feeling Seen Pod or go to Blue Sky, where you can find Feeling Seen and me under the handle Jor Crew, which is also where I am located on Twitter. Our theme music is by Andrew Epen. Our producer is Marissa Flaxbart. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher. And this is a production of Maximum Fun.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported directly by you.